Have you ever wondered why some women seem to pull men into their orbit like gravity, without lifting a finger, without chasing, without ever appearing to need? She doesn't shout her power. She whispers it in the way she walks away. She is not warm and welcoming like spring. She is the storm before it. Men don't run from her shadows. They become intoxicated by them, obsessed, drawn in, undone. She is the shadowed flame. She lives beyond the duality of the good girl and the femme fatale. She doesn't dress her wounds in silk and sweetness. She lets her rage bloom like dark roses. And it is this unapologetic embrace of her full emotional spectrum that awakens something primal in the masculine. Not comfort, not control, but chaos and fascination. You see, most men were raised to seek the light in women. The nurturing, the patient, the pleasing. But that light only reflects their ego. It tells them, you are safe, you are wanted, you are in charge. The dark feminine, however, holds up a mirror to the anima, the unconscious feminine within every man. She doesn't reflect who he thinks he is. She stirs who he truly is beneath his armor, and that is terrifying and irresistible. In Jungian terms, the shadow represents the parts of the psyche that remain hidden, denied, or disowned. For many women, this includes their anger, their erotic power, their refusal to be tamed. And yet, it is in the integration of this shadow, when she stops being afraid of her own depth, that she becomes magnetic. The kind of magnetic that doesn't ask for love, it demands presence. There is no neediness in the shadowed flame, because she no longer seeks validation through being chosen. She is the chooser. And that shift, the internal, silent, psychological shift, alters everything about how men experience her. Men don't chase her because she plays hard to get. They chase her because her energy says, "You'll never get me," not fully. And nothing activates the masculine psyche more than the pursuit of mystery it cannot solve. But mystery is not manipulation. The dark feminine is not a strategy. It's not withholding affection, faking aloofness, or pretending indifference. It is the embodiment of sovereignty. It's being so rooted in your own worth that rejection becomes a redirection, not a threat. And that kind of power doesn't scream. It hums in your silence. It intoxicates in your absence. When a woman embraces her darkness, she stops apologizing for her emotional waves. She allows herself to feel desire without shame, rage without guilt, silence without explanation. She reclaims the parts of herself that were once weaponized against her, too much, too cold, too intense, too emotional. And in doing so, she stops playing a role. She starts embodying a force. This force doesn't seek permission. It doesn't wait for understanding. It doesn't trade softness for love. It stands in the paradox, tender yet untouchable, devotional yet wild, present yet impossible to possess. And to the man still ruled by ego, she is chaos. But to the man ready to meet his own shadow, she is the invitation. Now imagine this through the lens of emotional energy. When a woman is still trapped in the fear of being unloved, she leaks energy in every direction. Her presence is scattered, grasping, diluted. But when she owns her darkness, when she becomes whole, her energy condenses. It becomes dense, potent, undeniable. Like gravity, it pulls. And he cannot explain why he keeps thinking of her. Why her absence echoes louder than another woman's presence. She haunts him, not in a twisted way, but in the way that awakens the buried parts of his soul. The parts he's never dared to express. The parts that hunger for depth but fear surrender. The shadowed flame doesn't promise safety. She promises truth. And most men don't even know they've been starving for it until she walks away and takes that truth with her. In Stoic philosophy, Epictetus said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." And yet, no man can truly master himself until he has faced his mirror, the woman who will not bend for his approval. The woman who triggers his wounds not to punish him, but to reveal them. That is the paradox. The dark feminine doesn't chase love. She exposes who is capable of giving it. To you, the listener, have you abandoned your darkness just to feel acceptable? Have you edited yourself to keep the peace, only to find you've become invisible in the process? This is your call to return, to retrieve your rage, your longing, your power, not to use them as weapons, but to let them breathe, to let them live. Because the woman who dances with her shadows does not beg to be seen, she becomes unforgettable. She does not beg to be loved, she becomes inevitable. And so the question rises, are you ready to stop being a story someone else writes? Are you ready to become the archetype, the shadowed flame, who stops seeking safety and starts radiating sovereignty? The shadowed flame does know. T asks for devotion, she evokes it. Men may not understand why they orbit her in memory long after her voice has faded. It is not her beauty alone, not her charm, not even her words. It is the energy she commands when she is unavailable to illusion, the way she refuses to contort, the way she lets silence answer questions not worth asking. She is not a prize to be won. She is a realm to be entered, only by those who have earned the key through self-awareness, not seduction. This is where most stumble, because men conditioned by ego often chase certainty. The woman who explains, who assures, who forgives preemptively. The woman who holds their wounds like delicate glass. But the shadowed flame, she holds up a mirror instead, and she waits. If he flinches, he's not ready. If he breaks the mirror, he's still in shadow. But if he stands, trembling, and sees himself clearly, then perhaps he has begun his initiation. The ancient alchemists believed that true transformation comes not from addition, but from integration, that the gold is not found by becoming more, but by embracing what is hidden. Jung echoed this. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will rule your life and you will call it fate. The dark feminine lives at this threshold. She doesn't hide from her desires, her wounds, or her power. She brings them home. And when she does, something remarkable happens. She becomes emotionally unpredictable, not because she is unstable, but because she is no longer performative. Her reactions are not filtered for approval. Her affections are not choreographed for effect. She is true, and truth is wild. Truth doesn't flatter, it cuts, it cleanses, it clarifies. When a man meets a woman like this, he is stripped of his scripts. His charm fails. His rehearsed masculinity dissolves. And in that space, what remains? The raw self, the man without performance, the man without the mask. But understand this, the shadowed flame does not demand this from him. She simply requires it by existing. She doesn't beg him to rise, she simply will not descend. Her standards are not a cage, they are a portal, and only those willing to die to their illusions may enter. This death, the death of the persona, the social mask, is terrifying for many, especially for the man who's built his identity around conquest. To him, her refusal is an insult, but to the man who is ready to be reborn, her presence is sacred. She becomes the rite of passage, not through words, through energy, through presence, through contrast. The most haunting thing about her is not her fire, it's her absence. When she pulls away, she doesn't leave behind bitterness or blame. She leaves behind a void, a silence so complete it becomes a mirror. In that silence, a man is forced to confront not what she did wrong, but what he was unwilling to face. His own detachment, his own avoidance, his hunger for control disguised as love. And yet she does not punish, she simply does not return. Because she has already returned to herself. This is what makes her unforgettable. Not what she gives, but what she withdraws. Not to wound, but to reveal. In a world addicted to comfort, her absence becomes a source of awakening. And the man who felt entitled to her softness begins to realize that softness was a gift, not a given. To the listener, how often have you confused shrinking with strength? How many times have you silenced your knowing to preserve a connection? How many pieces of your truth have you buried just to be loved by someone too shallow to witness your depth? This is your reckoning. Because when you reclaim your dark feminine, you stop being a shape others mold. You become a presence they must meet. You stop offering proof of your worth. You become the proof. Your tears are sacred. Your silence is potent. Your intuition is law. You no longer beg for breadcrumbs. You sit at your own table. And anyone who cannot bring depth, presence, and respect is uninvited. This reclamation is not loud. It is not theatrical. It is quiet, internal, sovereign. It's in the way you stop explaining your boundaries, the way you stop chasing clarity from the unclear, the way you release the need to be chosen, because you've already chosen yourself. And in that choice, you begin to attract not boys playing power games, but men who are ready to bow, not in submission, but in reverence. The true masculine does not fear the dark feminine. He is drawn to her, not because she flatters his ego, but because she challenges his soul. She calls him into depth, into stillness, into integrity, and only the man who has met his own shadow can stand beside her flame without flinching. And so, the magnetic truth remains. The more a woman embraces her darkness, the less she needs to chase. Because the right man does not need to be convinced. He feels her before she speaks. He senses her before she arrives. He recognizes her as a mirror of his own unspoken longing. So ask yourself, what parts of you have been silenced? For safety, what would happen if you stopped apologizing for your intensity, your instincts, your power? What would happen if you became the flame? The moment a woman stops fearing her intensity, she becomes untouchable, not because she is distant, but because she is deep. And depth terrifies those who only know how to swim in the shallows. The shadowed flame is not interested in shallow. She does not want surface conversation, half-hearted promises, or convenient affection. She does not want to be someone's maybe or someone's backup plan. Her standards are not a game. They are sacred thresholds. If a man cannot meet her in presence, if he cannot hold her in truth, if he flinches at the weight of her silence, then he is not meant to stand in her fire. For the wounded masculine, this woman is a puzzle he cannot solve. Her indifference triggers his insecurity. Her lack of response feels like punishment, but she is not punishing, she is protecting. She has learned, perhaps through pain, that her energy is not free, that her essence is not a discount, that her body, her heart, her attention are currencies of the divine, and anything divine must be earned, not extracted. You see, when a woman walks the path of the shadowed flame, she no longer sees rejection as loss. She sees it as protection. She no longer personalizes a man's inability to love her. She sees it as evidence of his unhealed wounds. She no longer chases clarity from confusion. She lets confusion exit, because she understands now confusion is not romantic. It is chaotic, and she is no longer available for chaos that doesn't transform. Her chaos is sacred. It is creative. Destructive, yes, but only to what is false. The dark feminine does not burn everything to the ground for drama. She burns illusions, codependency, fantasy, the small, suffocating lies that keep her pretending, and from those ashes she builds herself, again and again, until no version of her remains that is not rooted in self-worth. This is the inner work, the alchemy that makes her magnetic. It is not lipstick and detachment. It is not silence and power plays. It is grief, integration, emotional honesty. It is shadow work, the kind that forces her to face her own abandonment wounds and no longer make them someone else's responsibility to fix. The kind that teaches her to love herself so completely that even when she's alone, she feels held. Most will never understand her power because they have never faced their own. They will mistake her distance for coldness, her confidence for arrogance, her boundaries for punishment. But that's only because they haven't yet reached the frequency where her energy feels like truth, not threat. This is the paradox of power. The more self-possessed a woman becomes, the more she is misread by those who cannot access that frequency within themselves. And still, she does not shrink. She does not over-explain. She does not soften for the sake of comfort, because her softness is sacred, and only those who meet her with reverence will receive it. To the listener, how many times have you been told you're intimidating, that you're too much, that you need to tone it down just to be digestible? You were never too much. They were simply too small to hold your wholeness. So stop diluting, stop shrinking, stop hiding your rage behind politeness and your longing behind indifference. You are allowed to want deeply, to feel deeply, to grieve deeply. You are allowed to say, I am not here to be chosen. I am here to see who is worthy of standing beside me. You are allowed to walk away, not to punish, but to preserve your power. And when you do, something extraordinary happens. You start attracting men who are not intimidated by your clarity, men who are not triggered by your fire, men who do not need to control you to feel powerful. These men are rare. They are forged, not found. They have faced heartbreak. They have questioned their ego. They have done the work. And when they meet the shadowed flame, they don't try to extinguish her. They offer presence, structure, devotion, not to tame her, but to witness her fully. This is polarity in its purest form. Not dominance and submission, but containment and expansion. The masculine offers grounded presence. The feminine expands into it, uncoils, expresses, creates. But she can only do this when she feels safe, not from danger, but from distortion. And so she waits, not in desperation, but in discernment, because she knows now, every moment spent chasing the wrong energy is a moment stolen from her sovereignty. And still they chase her because she is unlike the rest. She doesn't offer easy access. She offers transformation, and that is what the soul truly craves, not comfort, not compliance, but catalyst. So when he feels her leave, not with bitterness but with grace, he begins to realize she was never trying to be claimed. She was testing the fire within him. And only the man who can match her depth will dare follow. So ask yourself again, who are you when you stop shrinking? Who are you when you stop begging to be understood and begin to understand yourself so completely that even solitude feels like ceremony? You are the shadowed flame. She does not seduce with smiles. She seduces with silence. It's in the pause between her words, the way she leaves space for tension to rise, the way she listens without reacting. The shadowed flame is not in a hurry to be known. She does not rush to fill the void. She becomes the void. And in doing so, she pulls men into the hollow chambers of their own unconscious, where masks fall and truth stands raw. For most, this is unbearable. They want light, softness, a mirror that flatters, but she offers something more dangerous: clarity, the kind of clarity that does not soothe, the kind that strips, that exposes, that reveals the gaps between who he claims to be and who he actually is. She does not demand his greatness. She reveals where he's abandoned it, because she has stopped abandoning her own. You must understand, the dark feminine does not beg for reassurance. She does not need reminders of her worth. Her worth is internal, rooted, unshakable. Even when she aches, even when she is doubted, even when he turns away, she remains. She might cry, she might scream, she might burn it all down in heartbreak, but she never begs, because begging belongs to the ego, and she is not her ego, she is her essence. That essence is what men crave, though most can't name it. It lingers after the texts stop. It whispers in dreams. It turns other women into comparisons. Because while others gave attention, she gave awakening. And awakening leaves scars. It leaves hunger. It leaves men staring into the mirror, asking questions they don't know how to answer. Why do I still think about her? Why does her silence say more than another woman's "I love you"? Why can't I move on? Because she didn't give him validation. She gave him truth. In Jungian psychology, the anima, the feminine within every man, remains unformed, immature until it is challenged by the real, embodied feminine in a woman who will not shrink. Most men live in projection. They fall in love with their idea of a woman, but the shadowed flame kills the projection. She is not the fantasy. She is the fire that devours it. And if he can endure that death, he will be reborn, not as a man who conquered her, but as a man who finally met himself. This is why she is not for everyone. She is not the girl you bring to meet your family to prove you're normal. She's not the placeholder between heartbreaks. She is the portal between timelines, the choice that changes the direction of your life. And men know, on some intuitive level, that to be close to her means losing control, because she will not let them remain half alive. She will not tolerate small talk when the soul is screaming. She will not pretend when the truth is bleeding between every word. And so the weak run. The wounded lash out. And the worthy, they rise. But here's the most sacred truth. She does not wait for them to rise. The shadowed flame does not pause her path for the potential of a man. She does not place her power on hold while he fumbles with his reflection. If he cannot meet her in the realm of depth, she lets him go, not out of bitterness, but because she no longer negotiates her frequency to be palatable. She walks alone if she must, and in that aloneness she finds sovereignty. To the woman listening, have you dimmed your fire to keep the peace? Have you pretended not to care so you wouldn't scare him off? Have you ever whispered when your soul was screaming? That was never strength, that was survival. But survival is no longer your path. Your path is remembrance of the woman who doesn't just carry fire, she is the fire. The woman who doesn't explain her silence, who doesn't apologize for her standards, who doesn't entertain energy that cannot match her vibration. You are not here to convince him. You are here to become you. And in that becoming, men who are not ready will fall away, not because you failed, but because you awakened something they could not yet hold. Let them go, let the space widen, let the ache cleanse, because in that sacred emptiness something else is coming. A man who has met his own darkness. A man who does not fear yours. A man who does not chase the light to escape his shadow, but stands in both. Fully. He will not seduce, he will not perform, he will not pacify. He will arrive. Not to fix you, not to tame you, but to witness you. And when he does, he will not be surprised by your fire. He will remember it, because it will look like his own. And that, listener, is where the real dance begins. There is a moment in every empowered woman's journey when she stops asking, "Will he stay?" and starts asking, "Does he see me?" Not the mask, not the body, not the performance, but the full spectrum. The silent storms behind the eyes, the unspoken knowing, the fury. She's tamed not out of weakness, but out of wisdom. The part of her that once begged to be understood has died, and in its place something quieter, stronger, more ancient has risen. A knowing, a sovereignty, a standard. The shadowed flame does not demand worship, but she will never again accept neglect. Because now she understands the sacred contract she holds, not with a man, not with society, but with her soul. Her body is not a bargaining chip. Her heart is not a reward for good behavior. Her attention is not a prize to be earned through manipulation or proximity. These are the myths of the fragmented feminine, where power is exchanged for crumbs, where silence is confused for devotion. But the woman who has remembered her dark feminine no longer negotiates with ghosts. She speaks with her presence. She walks away in peace. She doesn't need closure. She is the closure. This is what makes her unforgettable. She is not the fire that burns out in passion. She is the ember that lives in the lungs long after the words have stopped, long after the door has closed, long after another body tries to replace her, but fails because they lack her frequency. You cannot imitate what is forged in the crucible of self-remembrance. And that is what she is. She is forged. Through betrayal, through loss, through the ache of giving too much to the wrong ones. She has died, emotionally, spiritually, so many times that her boundaries are no longer requests. They are laws. And yet within her still burns softness. Not the kind that shrinks, not the kind that waits, but the kind that chooses. She chooses when to open. She chooses when to trust. And when she does, it is not conditional, it is total, because she has no desire to perform love. She embodies it fiercely, fully, fearlessly. But you must meet her there. In presence. In truth. In the place where masks are dropped and the inner child is revealed, not as weakness, but as holy vulnerability. If a man cannot offer this, she does not teach. She does not fix. She simply leaves. Not because she doesn't care, but because she finally does for herself. To the man listening, if you feel her slipping through your fingers, ask yourself this. Did you truly see her, or did you try to own her? Did you feel her essence, or did you try to manage her emotion? Did you meet her soul, or just seduce her surface? Because the shadowed flame cannot be possessed. She is not a petal to be plucked. She is a storm to be honored. She requires no control to feel safe. She requires containment, not as limitation, but as reverent presence. A man who does not flinch when she rises, who does not shrink when she withdraws, who remains not because he's trying to win, but because he's rooted in his own knowing, his own fire, his own depth. This is what creates energetic equals. The woman who has integrated her darkness, and the man who has faced his. Together, they are not harmonious in the conventional sense. They are not always comfortable. They trigger, they challenge, they elevate. Because theirs is not a love of convenience. It is a love of initiation. To the woman hearing this is your permission to stop waiting for him to choose you. This is your signal to stop explaining your silence, to stop shrinking for comfort, to stop withholding your anger, your pleasure, your power, just to avoid being left. Let them leave. Let them misunderstand you. Let them tell the story that helps them sleep. You are not here to be palatable. You are here to be unforgettable. And you already are. Because the shadowed flame is not built through strategies. She is built through scars. Not the kind that harden you, but the kind that awaken you. She is the woman who no longer waits for the storm to pass. She becomes the storm. And any man who cannot swim in that ocean is not her anchor. He is her past. So now the final question rises like smoke. What would your life look like if you stopped asking to be loved and started embodying the love you once begged for? There comes a time when a woman stops searching for reflections of herself in others and becomes the mirror. The shadowed flame is that mirror. She no longer plays roles to soothe discomfort. She no longer wears masks to make others stay. She no longer trades her truth for temporary affection. She stands, alone if she must, in her fullness, in her fire, in her feminine wildness, not the kind that destroys, but the kind that purifies. She no longer seeks to be healed by love. She brings the medicine. What most people fear in her is not her rage, not her silence, not even her intensity. What they fear is her freedom. Because a woman who no longer needs anything is the most dangerous kind. Not because she is reckless, but because she is unclaimable. She belongs to no man, to no doctrine, to no fantasy. She belongs to herself. And in that she becomes the woman men chase, not to control, not to save, but to witness, to feel, to follow into mystery, because she has become the embodiment of everything they've repressed within themselves, their own anima waiting to be awakened, their own softness waiting to be honored, their own depth waiting to be touched. The empowered feminine does not shame the masculine. She invites him deeper. She does not demand perfection. She invites presence. She does not want power over him. She wants him in his own power so they can meet without distortion. When a woman like this enters a man's life, she stirs what he has buried. She calls out the spaces where he plays small. She sees the parts he hides from the world and refuses to ignore them. And if he cannot hold that gaze, if he cannot rise into self-accountability, if he cannot meet her shadow without collapsing into his ego, he will fall away. But if he can, he will rise, not for her but for himself. And that is the real pursuit. Not of the woman, but of the man he's never dared to become. This is why she is unforgettable, because she is not a chapter, she is the threshold. The line between who he was and who he could be. And no man forgets the woman who revealed his soul. To you, listener, this is your homecoming. You don't need to be less expressive, less emotional, less intense. You don't need to hide your wisdom behind flirtation or your anger behind smiles. You don't need to be softer just to be safe. You are already enough in your rawness, in your stillness, in your fire. Let it burn, let it cleanse, let it call in what your soul truly deserves. Because the woman who embraces her dark feminine no longer asks, "Will he love me?" She asks, "Does this connection honor who I've become?" She no longer seeks comfort. She seeks truth. She no longer bends. She becomes the boundary. She no longer waits. She walks. And what follows her is not just love. It is reverence. So if you feel yourself shifting, if something ancient is rising in your chest, if you feel the weight of everything you've been taught about love cracking under the pressure of your own awakening, know this. You are not becoming difficult. You are becoming divine. You are not losing connection. You are shedding distortion. You are not too much. You are simply no longer willing to be less. So breathe. Stand taller. Let your silence speak louder than ever before. Let your eyes become the altar. Let your presence undo the superficial. Because when a woman knows her worth, not as currency but as cosmic inheritance, she does not chase, plead, or convince. She chooses. And now so can you. Share the moment you felt most empowered in the comments below. There is power in being witnessed. There is power in speaking truth. The woman who knows her worth doesn't chase, she chooses.